Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Upijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Taigo Premanandi Hari Hari. So we're going to read from the first canto, second chapter, beginning with text 18. And there's this series of verses. Let me double check and see.
261200.
So first I do, whoop.
261200.
Yes. We'll go back. These are very important verses, so we can start. We'll start with verse 12. How do I get the purport? I just hit it and purport comes up? This is text 12. Touch Shadadana Munayo Jnana Vairagya Yuktaya Prashantyatmani Chatmanam Shruta Grihitaya. The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from Vedānta-śruti. So this is describing the progressive path to coming to a more sattvic position, or the position of nishta. So it begins by hearing. So now how do I, whoops, oh. I think I just did something, okay. I don't know, which way is the next verse, right or left?
Right.
Vedanti tattvavidas, is that the next verse? No, that's the verse before, right? It should be left. Oh, this should be 13. There's no number here. O best among the twice-born, it is therefore concluded that the highest perfection one can achieve by discharging duties prescribed for one's own occupation, according to caste divisions, and orders of life, is to please the personality of Godhead. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, glorify, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead. So it's focusing here on, it's emphasizing hearing as one of the most powerful ways to purify us. With sword in hand. Sword, what's the sword? Intelligent men cut through the binding knots of reactionary work karma by remembering the personality of Godhead. Therefore, who will not pay attention to his message? O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains affinity for hearing the message of Vasudeva. So this should be text 18. Shunnatam sakata Krishna punya shravana kirtana ridyantasto hiyabadrani vidhunoti surichatam. So this is kind of taking us now to coming to sattva gun by hearing, by continually hearing. The Bhagavatam is saying, by hearing, your heart becomes cleansed, you get mercy, you please Krishna, and then this is like anartha nivritti is happening by hearing, and then continue hearing, you come to nishta. So these next 3 verses will take us to nishta. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, Supersoul, in everyone's heart, cleanses desire. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, Supersoul, in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Punya Shravana Kirtana. The Lord is reciprocally respondent to his devotees. When he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord, and has thus become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. Sound good? So what's the key element? Krishna sees you're eager to become Krishna conscious, and therefore you're eager to learn how to be Krishna conscious, you're eager to hear about him, you're eager to do everything that will help you become Krishna conscious. And then Krishna says, yes, my man, my woman, okay, I'm on your side, and we're going to reprogram you. Internally reprogram you, and we'll reorient your GPS, internal GPS, and we'll guide you back to Godhead. Before you had your GPS guided for another birth. Another birth with more money and fame and beauty. Now, you want to be Krishna conscious, so new location, Brajadam, new location. Before you had Swargaloka. Now we've changed it, Krishna's changing it inside for new locations, Braj, and then you get new directions, right? So that's how it works. Pretty simple, right? Okay.
Okay, let me just fix it. Listen for a while. Sorry, boss.
Yeah, I don't think you want to lock your phone, because if someone steals your phone, you want them to be on the phone so you can locate the phone. Because if they can't get in the phone, you can't locate it. Is that true? What? You can, even if they don't get in? But then why would they have it on if they can't get in? It has to be on, at least, right? Okay. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into His kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back to Godhead. Only a very few men want to go back to Godhead. But anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects. Okay. One cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desires to lord it over material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth are very difficult problems for the devotee making progress on the path back to Godhead. Many stalwarts in the devotional line fell victim to these allurements and thus retreated from the path of liberation. Okay? It's time to leave the temple. What's the use? Even greater devotees than ourselves couldn't do it. So you might as well retreat, give up, right? Go home, cry to your mother. Say, I tried, I couldn't do it. Wealth and women. That's it. There's another sentence after to give us hope. But one who is helped by the Lord Himself. But when one is helped by the Lord Himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. So this is an interesting paragraph, isn't it? It's like the first half of the paragraph is kind of like, well, people better than you couldn't do it. People smarter than you, people more pious than you, people with better samskars than you, people with more intelligent than you, they fell. So might as well, go home and cry. And then we go back to the previous paragraph, and which says, but if you want it, Krishna will help you. And if Krishna helps you, then don't worry, you'll get it. So that's the reassurance. So it's more or less like saying, well, on your own, you won't get it, but if you want it, Krishna will let you get it. So that's why Prabhupada said there is no, like we say, Maya is the enemy, but, maybe in a philosophical sense we can say that, but the real enemy is, that every morning when you brush your teeth and you look in the mirror, yeah, that's the enemy, or the friend. But it's not really Maya. Because if you want to be Krishna conscious, Maya is not the enemy, Maya becomes your friend. And if you don't want to become Krishna conscious, then she becomes the so-called enemy. But it all depends on us. So here, this purport is reassuring. If we just have a desire to be Krishna conscious, Krishna will do everything else. And if we don't have the desire, Krishna will not interfere with our desire to be in Maya. You want to be in Maya? You have full freedom. Krishna won't interfere. He'll only interfere if you want him to. Sometimes the devotee prays, Krishna, don't let me do this, don't let me do that. If I'm stupid enough to think this way, please rectify me. There's lots of prayers like that, even by acharyas. I'm such a fool, I'm such an idiot, I desire this and that. If I do, do something to prevent it. Don't allow me to think that way. Don't allow me to endeavor that way. So if that's our desire, Krishna will do everything. That's what Prabhupada's saying. And so he's saying, pretty much your Krishna consciousness is guaranteed if you want it, because Krishna will help you. But when one is helped by the Lord himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. As easy as anything. Why is it easy? You don't have to do anything. Krishna will do it. He'll give you all the insight and intelligence and guidance you need to go back to Godhead. And if you don't want to be Krishna conscious, you'll get all the insight, guidance, and intelligence you need to remain in the material world forever. That's how it works. To become restless in the contact of women and wealth is not an astonishment, because every living being is associated with such things from remote time, practically immemorial. And it takes time to recover from this foreign nature. Sometimes we wonder, well, why is it so hard? Why are these material desires so strong? Well, it's easy to understand. We've had a habit for 1 million lifetimes, so that's pretty deeply ingrained. It's not a habit for 3 years. It's millions and millions and millions of lives. That's just, and Prabhupada's saying, that's just normal for us. So conditioned is normal. So yeah, it takes time. But if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, gradually he realizes his real position. By the grace of God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from the state of disturbances, and gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind. So this is that transition from anartha nivritti to nishta. The battle's still going on a bit on anartha nivritti, but when he comes to nishta, he's on his way to victory. It's looking good. So we're getting closer to it. Next verse. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. This is the stage of nishta. Almost, not completely. Or you could say, yeah, anartha, sometimes you might say it's anartha nivritti, but really it's nishta, almost destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, prayeshu means almost to nil. The devotee, Bhagavat, is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. So by pleasing the devotee Bhagavat, one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagavat. In other words, you can understand Bhagavatam by serving the pure devotee. Human reason fails to understand how by serving the devotee Bhagavat or the book Bhagavat, one gets gradual promotion to the path of devotion. But actually these are facts explained by Srila Narad Deva, who happened to be a maidservant's son in his previous life. The maidservant was engaged in the menial service of the sages, and thus he also came into contact with them. And simply by associating with them and accepting the remnants of foodstuff left by the sages, the son of the maidservant got the chance to become a great devotee of the personality of God. This morning I was listening to some lectures by Srila Prabhupada, and in one lecture he said, simply by chanting Hare Krishna and taking prasadam, we could make everyone in the world Krishna conscious. If people chant, I'm sure Prabhupada means every day they only take prasadam and they chant sufficiently every day, then everyone can become Krishna conscious. In that lecture, Prabhupada said, the tongue should not taste anything other than Krishna prasadam. That's the only thing the tongue should taste. These are the miraculous effects of the association of Bhagavatas. And to understand these effects practically, it should be noted that by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the result that he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord. Nishta. Prayeshu, almost to nil. Avadreshu. That's nishta. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavatas, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The messages of the book Bhagavat therefore have to be received from the devotee Bhagavat, and the combination of these two Bhagavatas will help the neophyte devotee to make progress on and on. So basically what Prabhupada is saying is Daivesha gunamayi mama maya duratya. You'll never conquer Maya, but when you have Krishna, no problem. You know that verse, I think it's 7:14, isn't it? It's 7:14. What? Daivesha gunamayi mama maya duratya. Mamivye prapadyante maitan taranti. So, first half of the verse, Maya is impossible to conquer over. Second half of the verse, easy to conquer over. If you know the combination. So Prabhupada's saying the same thing in these verses. Basically, good luck. You want to conquer the material energy, you've been in it for millions of lifetimes. You're habituated to be with this Ishvara Bhav, the mentality of a controller, and Purusha Bhav, the mentality of an enjoyer, which is Krishna's position. That's deeply implanted in our psyche. Good luck. But hearing from the Bhagavat, serving the Bhagavat, you get kripa. By kripa, Krishna says, yes, we're going to help you. You want to go back to Godhead? So let's do it. We're on our way. I'll do it for you. Sit back and relax. Enjoy the flight. I'm your pilot. We're going back to Godhead. As long as you have the desire to stay on the plane, we're going. That's basically what Prabhupada's saying. But the next verse is actually the verse I wanted to read. This is a very interesting verse. In commentary, there's some commentaries by acharyas that I find quite interesting also. Tada rajastamo bhava kamo labha dayastaye. Chetar etar anavidam. Stitam satve prasidati. As soon as Shigor Nitai ki jai. Gaura Nityananda. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. Yes. So, the word here is sattve. sattva, the mode of goodness. So, not that the goal of Krishna consciousness is to be in the mode of goodness, but the process of bhakti, it purifies you of the effects of passion and ignorance, so it situates you in goodness. And when you're in goodness, because there's no passion and ignorance, then all these other things like kama, lobha, etc., they pretty much disappear. That's what this verse is saying. So by the process of hearing, become purified. Process of serving, become purified over and over. Gradually you'll become situated in goodness. And the good news of goodness is lust, anger, greed, all these things. They don't bother you. They don't bother you anymore. So I was saying the other day that at this stage, nishta, as Prabhupada said here, prayeshu means almost to nil, and then he said like 75%. 75% cleared out. But what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has explained, I believe, it's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, as I was saying yesterday, that when you're in mode of goodness, even if there's some conditioning left, which there is, because nishta is only the 5th stage, there's still 4 more stages till love. But on this stage, even though we're not completely purified, there's still influence, but the influence is very weak. So it is said here, kama, lobha, and etc., it goes away. It doesn't mean it entirely goes away, but it goes away sufficiently so that it's not a disturbance. And because it's not a disturbance, it's called nishta, because you're steady. And when it's a disturbance, what happens? It's like this. You can't be steady yet because it's disturbing you. It's pushing you down, then you get back on your feet and you come up. So, previous to this stage, we're a little bit like yo-yos. One day good, one day not so good, one day bad, one day great, one day okay. But nishta means that the influence of the modes of nature, passion, ignorance, it's almost nil, it's weak, it doesn't have much effect. So it might even be there sometimes, but doesn't do anything because it's not strong. There's like Krishna says, dayato vishayam punsam. You meditate on something and then you become attached, and then sangat teshu bhajayate, then lust comes, kama, krodha. So if you just contemplate something, not much happens. But when you keep contemplating, then attachment, and then attachment causes lust. So in this stage, maybe sometimes if the thought, a devotee may have a thought, but it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't generate, because it requires passion to become attached and for lust to develop. So when you're in sattva gun, there may be some remnant of conditioning. You look at something, you think, I used to be attracted to that, or that looks attractive, but there's nowhere in your heart for it to do anything, to act, because you're in sattva. That's why it's so important to have a strong morning program, because you get sattva gun and you're going to go out into rajas and tamas. And if you don't get enough sattva, what happens when you go out into rajas and tamas? You get affected by it. But if you're in sattva, you're a little bit above the clouds, so to speak. So we all experience that. You have a good morning program and then you go out and you feel a bit transcendental, or at least you feel sattvic enough that you're not really bothered. But when you descend into passion and ignorance, then we get affected. So the process of hearing is very important. You hear every day, this is what happens. You remain sattvic. So let's read the purport. A living being in his normal constitutional position is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss. This state of existence is called Brahmabhuta or Atmanandi, or the state of self-satisfaction. This self-satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. The inactive fool is in the state of foolish ignorance, whereas the self-satisfied Atmanandi is transcendental to the material state of existence. So this is funny, because sometimes when someone's in the mode of ignorance, they can appear to be like a paramhamsa, like they don't care. They appear to be transcendental, but they're not above the modes, they're kind of under the modes. And they're so under the modes that they don't care. And they're so ignorant that they're happy. So Prabhupada said, there's two kinds of happy people, the Paramahamsa and the person in the mode of ignorance. So sometimes they look the same. Obviously not the same, but they look the same. Person in the mode of ignorance, he comes into a place, it's dirty, it's disorganized. No problem. You think, oh, he's very tolerant. It's not bothering him. No, it's not bothering him because he's in the mode of ignorance. And the whole room is ignorant. And the Paramhansa may not be bothered because he's transcendental and he sees Krishna everywhere. So they're both not bothered, but for a different reason. The stage of perfection is attained as soon as one is fixed in irrevocable devotional service. Irrevocable means that constantly you're not taking time out for Maya. I have a funny godbrother, and he was a devotee, but he didn't always have an easy time. He was, we could say, very conditioned, and sometimes he was so engaged, he would tell me, he said, I have too much engagement, I need some time for Maya. This is too intense. I need a Maya break. So something like that. So irrevocable service means no time for Maya. You're always engaged. You have free time. What do? You chant more rounds, you hear, you do kirtan, sing bhajan. That's irrevocable devotional service. You don't take a break. Okay, 10-minute Maya break. We'll see you after, come back, and we're taking a break now. Go read the news, go speak some gossip, go criticize somebody. Come back in 10 minutes. This devotional service is too intense. We need a break. Like that. That was his mood. So irrevocable means you just want devotional service. And when you have free time, it's just time to do some other service, or hearing and chanting. The soul's activity becomes adulterated in contact with matter, and as such, the diseased activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep. The effect of devotional service becomes manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. So that's the sign that your nishta is just, maybe a little bit like this, not completely pure, but it's not this. It's not, Maya breaks and up and down. It's not like that. The devotee is at once fixed in the mode of goodness, and he makes further progress to rise to the position of Vasudeva, or the state of unmixed sattva, or Shuddha sattva. Only in this Shuddha sattva state can one always see Krishna eye to eye by dint of pure affection for the Lord. So, sattva is a good place from which to transcend, and in Vishuddha sattva, then we can see Krishna. The devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness, therefore he harms no one. But the devotee, however educated he may be, is always harmful. Devotee is neither foolish nor passionate. The harmful, foolish, and passionate cannot be devotees of the Lord. However, they may advertise themselves as devotees by outward dress. A devotee is always qualified with all the good qualities of God. Qualitatively, such qualifications may be different, quantitatively, such qualifications may be different, but qualitatively, both the Lord and His devotees are one and the same. Okay. So now, the next verse explains what happens when you come to Nishta. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in this stage of liberation, from all material association. All right. A Brahman is the symbol of sattva guna, or the mode of goodness, and others who are not in the mode of goodness are either Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, or less than Shudras. The Brahminical stage is the highest stage of human life because of its good qualities. So one cannot be a devotee unless one at least qualifies as a Brahmana. In other words, Brahmana is sattva guna, so how are you going to be a devotee if you're in passion and ignorance? So this is the idea that you get initiated, you chant for a while. If you become steady, nishta, then you become Brahman. Prabhupada said, first initiation, we give a chance. Second initiation, it must be certain that you can follow these principles. So first initiation, a chance, okay, you've committed. Let's see if you actually do it. If you've actually done it, you're steady, sattva guna, Brahman. Of course, being initiated doesn't mean, oh, I'm a Brahmin. It means I'm now going to become one. I'm now given the okay. So I may not be perfectly in sattva guna, but that's the idea. You become a Brahmin, that's the goal. So this is interesting, what Prabhupada said. One cannot be a devotee unless one at least qualifies as a Brahmana. The devotee is already a Brahmana by action, but that is not the end of it. As referred to above, such a Brahman has to become a Vaishnava, in fact, to be actually in the transcendental stage. Pure Vaishnava is a liberated soul, and it's transcendental. Yeah, so if you're pure, obviously you're beyond Sattva and beyond Brahman. But if you're not, then you're coming from the lower modes up. And so being Brahminical helps. That's where we want to be. The knot of the heart, the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as the master. So now there's some realization and purification of karma. Yeah, okay. So, any questions?
Does it say up to Nishtha stage also, or after Nishtha also we need the guidance from senior devotees?
Yeah, always, yeah. Well, this is the way it works, as I understand it. That we need kripa to rise to the stage of bhava, but at the stage of bhava, it's simply Krishna's choice to get to bhava. It's Krishna's choice. It's not, you can't earn it. These other stages you earn by your effort, your sincerity, and then Krishna gives you his kripa, and by his kripa you advance. But it's no longer your effort anymore. When you get to bhava, it's simply Krishna has to give it to you. Whereas before, it's kind of a natural process. You make the effort, you get purified. But there, you can't, okay, Krishna, I'm going to work really hard, you give me bhava. There's a nice conversation. Well, it's nice, but it's strange. So one of our godbrothers had been associating with some, I guess, sadhus from Radhakund, and the sadhus from Radhakund told him that if you don't chant 64 rounds, it's not possible that you will get love of Krishna. And because Prabhupada gave us 16, and their standard is 64. So they said, you won't get love of Krishna, you have to chant at least 64 rounds every day. This person actually left Prabhupada. He was part of Prabhupada's entourage. And he traveled with him, and he did service with Prabhupada's books. And somehow or other, he left Prabhupada, being attracted by these other sadhus who were saying something different. And then he had sent a letter or some message to Prabhupada. And he was foolish enough to tell Prabhupada that you can't be Krishna conscious if you don't chant 64 rounds a day. So Prabhupada got the message, and he said, you can't get love of Krishna unless you chant 64 rounds a day. So when Prabhupada got that message, he discussed this with his disciples, and he said, you can't force Krishna to give you love. It's like, you can't. Okay, I'm going to do this 64 rounds, and after 10 years of 64 rounds, Krishna will give me love. It's not like a process, Do this for 10 years, you get this. Whereas the process to love is more like that. Do this, like we were reading today. You hear and you serve, then you'll come to sattva, and Krishna will guide you and so on. So he'll guide you, but when you get to bhava, this is different. And the reason that Prabhupada explained was that just like in our life, if you've been in a relationship with the opposite sex and it turned really miserable, then in the future, if there's another man or woman and there's potential of relationship, you might be really reluctant. Because you say, last time I gave my heart and this person tore it apart. So, when I give my heart, when I fall in love, I become controlled by this person. I'm enamored by them. I do whatever they want. I sacrifice so much. I become a different person. So it's the same for Krishna. That if this devotee has love, I become controlled by it. So he's careful. So all these other stages, no problem. But love, then I become controlled. I become a plaything of this devotee. So, it's not like 64 rounds, 192, whatever. That Krishna, I'm going to do 192 for a week, so then, it's wrapped up in the bag. We get love at the end of the week. It's not like that. So that's, his personal property. So that's how it works. So of course, kripa is always there. But at this stage, that's given by Krishna. And then, prema. So bhava has still some impurity. There's still some, it is said, there's still some impurity that may have come from past offenses to the holy name or to the Vaishnavas. Some slight something. Right? It's not completely pure yet. So this is very subtle now. It's like the gopis who were sadhakas, and they became gopis and they entered Braj. And so Krishna called the gopis for the rasa dance. He played his flute and they went. But some gopis were prevented to go by their husbands. And the reason was something was still there. Some attachment, something. So because it wasn't pure, they couldn't go to the rasa dance. So it looks like their husbands stopped them. All these bad husbands stopped them. But actually their husbands are just, manifestations of Krishna and Yogamaya's plan. So the plan is that or not the plan, but the situation is, if you're not pure, then you can't join Rasa Lila. And so Yogamaya will make an arrangement, in this case, a husband who says, no, you can't go. And so what happened was, because they couldn't go, they were feeling so much separation that they burned out all the last bits of contamination. And in the next rasa dance, when Krishna played his flute, their husbands let them go because they were qualified to go. So their husbands are devotees. It's not like their husbands are demons. These husbands in Vrindavan are demons. They didn't let the gopis go. And that was all arranged, Yogamaya. They weren't qualified to go. So bhava, there's still some impurity, so they had some impurity. Then they got purified. And now they were eligible for, So, it's pretty, if you're going to associate with Krishna, it's like, you got to be clean, right? So bhava is like You're almost there. And prema, I was just reading the other days, even in the beginning of prema, there might be a little drop of something. So that's amazing. Little drop of contamination in the beginning. But until we have prema, we can't enter the eternal pastimes. Then we can enter the pastimes on this earth in bhava and then become purified to enter the eternal pastimes. Imagine you went back to Godhead, you had prema, and you found that there were some people there who didn't have prema, who slipped in the back door, and no security gates, and you'd be kind of disappointed. Hey, what's going on here? Who's in charge? How did this happen? Who do I complain to? So, you might say, well, Krishna's standards are so high, he wants pure prema. Yeah, but if you think about it, you don't want anyone who doesn't have prema to be there. It won't work, right? So we have to become qualified with prema. And slowly, hearing, chanting, serving, gradually over the years, decades, something's going to happen. And then your hankering to be Krishna conscious gets stronger. The more the hankering, more Krishna guides you. More the hankering, the more the devotional service, more realizations. And then one day, you'll wake up and you'll have very strong desire and a very strong attraction and attachment, asakti. Actually be like attached to Krishna. And you'll be thinking in asakti, you'll get a very strong inclination of your relationship, like what it is, which relationship you're in. It becomes, you don't know who you are, but it's strong. I think I'm a cowherd. I think I'm in Sakya Ras. I feel this intense attraction. But you don't know that, you just feel it. But in bhava, it'll be revealed what your rasa is. And so many details of that, it'll be revealed to you. But still, it's not completely pure. It has to be purified for us to enter Goloka Vrindavan. But Gokul Vrindavan we can enter in bhava and get trained up. And then there's so many stages of bhava and so many stages of prema, sneha, and anurag, and so many things. And you can study them if you like. In Nectar Devotion, Jaiva Dharma, other books explain all these different stages of love. It's not, there are different kinds of love, and according to different relationships, you'll have different kinds of love. And then before that, on the stage of sadhana, you can practice raganuga bhakti, which means that you're instead of being motivated to follow Krishna consciousness by the rules of Shastra and by the Guru, the motivation now takes a higher form. Not that you're not motivated by your Guru's instructions, but it takes the form that you're motivated by a desire to enter a particular relationship in the mood of a particular servant of Krishna. You want to have that mood. You're like super attracted, like Mother Yasoda. Like, you just want to know about Mother Yasoda because you feel attracted to her mood and you want to experience that. And so that also will develop naturally. And that practice leads to spontaneous devotion, leads to ragatmika bhakti, spontaneous devotional service. It leads us to braja. So that kind of naturally develops. And if it's developing within you, that's good, that's nice. And if it's not, it will at some point. If you do everything right. And if you you have to extricate yourself enough from material life for that to happen. Because if there's too much maya in your life, then that purity, it can't manifest. There's just too many things in the way. Like we're going to get to ruchi. In the stage of ruchi, there is no material attachment. Ruchi means you have a taste for Krishna. If you have a taste for Krishna, you don't have a taste for anything non-Krishna. But if you have a taste for non-Krishna, you can't get to ruchi. That's how it works. You can't have both. Of course, you could have a little taste while you're still attracted to Maya. Of course, we have a little taste. But ruchi is taste always. It's all the time. It's always there. It's not today was a good day, japa, yesterday was a bad day. Not like that, no. Today was a good day, yesterday was a good day, tomorrow's going to be a good day, last week was good, next week's going to be good. That's ruchi, it's all good. There's not enough material energy and influence in the modes of nature that it wouldn't be good. And the senses are so purified that you can actually taste Krishna consciousness. Purified senses. You know, I was listening this morning, Prabhupada saying, purified senses, if your senses are purified, you can see Krishna. Same eyes you can see. So as the senses become purified, ruchi, everything's tasty. Right? Because Krishna's tasty, but we're tasting Krishna through the modes of nature, so we don't taste it. How does Krishna taste through the mode of passion? It's not the same. So when we're pure, there's pure ruchi. And when there's pure ruchi, taste, that's it. Your material life is destroyed. You're not attracted to anything. Oh, your friends think you're crazy. Your wife or husband thinks you're crazy. All he wants to do is chant Hare Krishna, read Prabhupada's books and service. What's wrong with this guy? You know, can't get him to be normal anymore. He doesn't want to go to Disneyland anymore. He doesn't want to go to the movies. He doesn't even read the newspaper anymore. I can't even get him to do this or that. He just wants to chant and serve. That's ruchi. You can't stop it. You know, might drive you crazy, but you know, when someone has a taste for something, you know, how can you stop it? You can't. So therefore, it said, when you get to the stage of ruchi, through all these other stages, climbing to the summit, he said, then your spiritual life is all downhill, because it's all being motivated by your taste, not by any struggle. And so very quickly you'll come to bhava. It'll happen much faster than it took to get to ruchi. You'll get to bhava really quickly, because there's no obstacles now. Right? Getting there, so many obstacles, so many anarthas, wealth, women, we just read. But at ruchi, that's pretty much just your taste is so strong that it just propels you. And then when your taste increases, you become attached. So the way Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, you could have a taste for Krishna in devotional service in a more impersonal way, but at a sakti, you're personally attached to Krishna. So it's not just I like devotional service. I like Krishna. I like that person. I'm attached to that person. That's the idea. So, any other question? Yes?
Just like how you mentioned about contemplation, when contemplation becomes a repeated one, and one becomes aware, they want to retract, but
Dayato Vishayam Punsam, that's what you're talking about, that verse? Yeah. Contemplating sense gratification, yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
And so...
Oh, once you contemplate and you want to stop contemplating.
Yeah, but then they are unable to, so they're like, what would be a good way to distract one?
A good way to detach from the contemplation?
No, distract from...
Distract yourself.
Back to sattva?
Oh. Well, there's a problem. And the problem is, it's hard to distract yourself once you're attached to something. So if you're on the stage of contemplation, that's when your willpower will be strongest to pull yourself away from contemplation. But when attachment comes, you're weakened. And when lust comes, you're finished. I mean, that's the way Krishna describes it. One thing leads to another. So if you nip it in the bud, in the process of thinking, then you can stop it. Once it becomes attachment, it's see you later, Prabhu. Tell me how it was. And we've seen that, you know. There's a boy and girl, and they're associating, and everyone's saying, this bad match, it's not going to work, don't do it. But if they're at the stage of thinking, it's easy to say, oh, okay, maybe I'll think about it, maybe you're right, and it's easier. Say, yeah, I think you're right, we're not a good match. The stage of sangat, even if they think they're not a good match, generally they go through, because there's an attachment, And attachment means there's some pleasure coming from it. And that's why it's hard to give up. Because contemplation, attachment, at that point, like I may be contemplating, oh, that looks nice, but I'm feeling some pleasure at the stage of Sangat. That's like, or I'm imagining the pleasure. I'm either experiencing it or imagining it, and that's where attachment comes from, the pleasure that something gives you. If something doesn't give you pleasure, well, why would you be attached to it? Right? Think I really like to have that, it'll be so nice, and now you're starting to feel how nice it's going to be to have it, isn't it? And at that point, it's very difficult to detach. So in my estimation of this verse, the strategy is on the stage of contemplation, that's when you have to cut it there, because that's the easiest state. So if you cut it there, it won't go to Sangat. As long as you're not in Sangat, you're okay, because there's no emotion involved. Patanjali says attachment comes from the pleasure you get from something. But you can get pleasure from something by thinking about the pleasure it's going to give you. And that's what Krishna is saying. By meditation on it, you become attached because you're meditating on the pleasure you're going to get from it. And so attachment develops. And then if you allow attachment to remain, then you lust, and lust means I have to have it. Which is this verse is so interesting because this is the whole basis of marketing. And like they say with marketing, the message has to be repeated. So through repetition you hear that. I saw that ad, well, that looks like a nice product. But then you forget. Then you see the ad again, and then again, and at a certain point, if attachment comes, then you'll buy it. Because once there's attachment, there'll be lust. So you really want to cut it at that point. Of course, the generic answer would be, no matter what happens, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. But if you're in a situation where repeatedly this is happening, Dayato Vishayam Punsam Sangat, then one very powerful remedy is to associate with devotees who don't have that Sangat that you have. And by being people who don't have the same attachments you have, you get purified of your attachments, because your attachments start to seem insignificant when you're around people who don't have them. When you're around people who have the same attachments, they grow. They seem important or necessary. When you're around people that don't have them, they seem foolish and unnecessary. So, good association sometimes is the only thing that can break certain attachments. When I was a young devotee, I had an attachment, and I couldn't give it up. And then we were in a preaching center, and some sannyasis came, and he saw I was kind of morose, and he said, well, what's going on? I said, this, that, and the next thing. And he said like 2 sentences, and it was just like, he was so detached from that I was attached to. His 2 sentences just finished that attachment. It was amazing. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Gone. And I had been like miserable for like a month, and 2 sentences finished. So that's the power of Sangha, of a person who doesn't have that attachment. It makes these big attachments like nothing. Like, oh, I was so stupid to be thinking about that. That's insignificant. So sometimes that's the best thing. You're struggling and you can't get over it. Just associate with someone who's over it, or who was never under it in the first place. And that association would be very powerful. But aside from that, the dayato, the thinking stage, you should always think, I'm thinking of sense gratification. I still have hope to pull myself out. If I get to Sangat stage, it's going to be difficult. And if I get to Kama stage, it's over. It's finished. It's going to happen. Yes?
I just wanted to share some thinking that attachment, for me, it's more connected with the taste, not the pleasure. Because some people are attached to things that are painful and not pleasant to them, but still they're getting some kind of taste out of it, and they're attached. To relate to this.
How do you distinguish pleasure from taste?
Taste is the experience. Pleasure is the experience that we like, in the sense that it's pleasurable.
And taste? As distinguished from being pleasurable? Like you're saying someone can do something that's not tasteful, but it's pleasurable to them. Like someone in the mode of ignorance may get pleasure from something.
People are in the relationships, and because of the attachment, there was the faith that it was like giving them pleasure and satisfaction.
Yes.
But then they are like in the relationship, and it's very painful, and doesn't give them what it used to give at the beginning. But still, they don't have strength to get to leave it behind because they're attached.
Yeah. Well, the attachment is coming from the pleasure. That's the problem. It's interesting. This is Patanjali explained the psychology of attachment. It's like if something's pleasurable, you want to do it again. So it develops an attachment. If it's not pleasurable, like let's say we go to the beach and I go, let's go swimming, and you've never been in the ocean and you practically drowned, you're never going to go back in the ocean. But I go out there and I'm riding the waves and I'm having a great time. I'm like, oh, can we go tomorrow? So pleasure creates attachment. Pain creates detachment. So it's interesting to think about this because every time you engage in a pleasurable experience, it forms a greater attachment. And so, like Prabhupada said, 4 regular principles, and don't eat too much and don't sleep too much. There's good reason, because if you get too much pleasure from it, then you get attached and you want to do it, and you'll do it more and more and more. So it works in Krishna consciousness also. You get pleasure from hearing, chanting, and you want to do that more. So that's good. So that's the psychology of attachment. So Patanjali said, so you have a pleasurable experience, and then you remember it. Oh, we went to the beach last week, it was really nice. So you want to do it again. The attachment develops because of the pleasure. And that's why Prabhupada said in the Gita, he said, if you're following the Vedic path of karma kanda or karma yoga, you have to be careful. Because it's meant to purify you, but you can get attached to. On the way, the roadside rest stop you could get attached to because it's so nice and never make it. So, and then raso varjam rasopyasya, and then the whole cure is get a taste from Krishna. That solves the whole problem. So, if we don't have a taste in Krishna consciousness, that's difficult. And then you might say, but taste is ruchi, it's like the 6th stage. That's true, but you'll get some ruchi in other stages. But the difficulty of the other stages is you have to keep going even if you don't have ruchi. It's, you just got to go by your willpower because you won't always have ruchi. So that's the hard part. But at ruchi, no problem. You're empowered, you're powered, you're fueled by taste. But until we're fueled by a constant taste, it takes a lot of willpower. Therefore, utsahan nishtaya daryat. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says, do it. Just keep doing it. No matter how difficult, keep going. That, when you're in bhajana kriya or in artha nivritti, that's the mentality. Just keep going. Don't give up. Keep pushing. Even if you don't like it, just keep going. But you can't do that your whole life. You have to evolve. If you don't evolve nishtha and ruchi, then you don't have sufficient ruchi, you'll give up after a while. It's too hard. I've been trying 45 years, I still can't get up early. I give up. 45 years, I still don't have a taste for the holy name. What's the use? How long can you go on? But when you get ruchi, everything is fantastic. And that ruchi is so beautiful and so thick and creamy and sweet that any attachment to things of this world is pale in comparison, so then it's not a problem. So you're not struggling with anything of this world, because compared to that, it's like, that's like a 1973 Toyota Corolla compared to your Mercedes-Benz. Why would you drive that? Right? But if all you have is a bicycle, that Corolla is looking good. So that's the value of ruchi. It's the Mercedes, which detaches you from all the Toyotas and Nissans and Hondas. Even though they're good cars, they're like, you got a Mercedes, no comparison. Different ball game, different league of pleasure. So in ruchi, it's just complete detachment, naturally. But before you get there, utsahan nishtaya darya tat karma pravardhana, sadhu sangha, You got to associate, you got to do all these things. Not that you wouldn't do them before in higher stages, but you do them later because you like to do them, because it's you have a taste for it. But in the earlier stages, you have to do it, otherwise you crash, because you don't have a strong enough taste. But Krishna is so kind, even though we're not on the stage of ruchi, sometimes he gives us an amazing taste, right? Just keep us going. So that's the idea. Yes?
Vijay, I wanted to ask you about the moon issue.
The moon.
The Bhagavatam says Chandra is a heavenly planet, and back in the day, Srila Prabhupada said it probably might be Rahu.
He definitely said even if they went to the moon, you didn't go to, even if you did go to the moon, you didn't go to the moon because you have a gross body and you can't have a gross body on the moon. So you never actually went, even if you did land on the planet. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have ample evidence that man did go to the moon. We can debate that, but how do you...
We have ample dramatic footage of it.
Yeah.
Whether that's real footage.
I think we are not up to date, because now it's obvious that even NASA officially stated that they never went to the moon. It was just fake.
They officially stated that?
I mean, like some people who work for NASA, they officially stated that it was like fake.
Well, one thing I know is that a devotee told me he worked for NASA on the radar, and he said the radar had not been proven sufficient at that point when they launched it, so-called launched. Said it was not proven, so that was an insider's. Anyway, it's an interesting thing that Prabhupada said. I was there when Prabhupada was talking about it, and he basically was saying the moon is too far away for them to travel with the spaceship. They couldn't go that far. And so he said, that's why he said, well, maybe they went to Rahu. Maybe they thought Rahu was the moon. And so maybe they landed somewhere. There's also 9/11.
Maybe they just landed in some movie studio and just filmed it all.
Yeah, there's some people say,
Stanley Kubrick, he came out with a documentary.
They have both sides of it. Some people say no, they couldn't have staged that because this light and that light, you couldn't have done it with studio lights. And other people say, look at that light, it's not natural. So
it was in the news today that in 2028 they're planning a manned mission to the moon, and the funding has been approved for that. So I guess we'll find out.
because previously they said we don't have the technology to repeat it, which was kind of like, what? Like what happened to it?
So we had it, but then we lost it.
Yeah, something weird. But whether they went or not, I think one thing that I gathered from that or got from Prabhupada is that it is, in Prabhupada's view of politics, it's within the realm of politics that they would pull the wool over everyone's eyes. Because Prabhupada said he said two things. He said, money. They were given so much money, they have to say they went to the moon, otherwise, like, what's the point of NASA? He said also, it was there was this space race. So he said it was like the Cold War, and who's the first to the moon is the greatest country. Of course, you could say, well, if that's the case, why didn't the Russians disprove it? But my takeaway was from it is that there are politicians who would do such things for various reasons. Prabhupada, he was just saying that the Vedic understanding of the planets is the moon is further than the sun, so how could they go that far? It was kind of like he wasn't like talking exactly shastrically, although that was there to some degree, but it was like, I think he would say, but I don't believe they could have gone there.
His classic was, they spend millions of dollars and they just
bring back a rock. Yeah, so that's the other That's the other idea. Even if we accept they went there, what was the use? I was just listening to a lecture, and he was talking about what's the use of going to the moon? You can't live there. So, but he did say even if they go to the moon, they didn't go to the moon because they didn't enter the moon because it's an ethereal. You need an ethereal body. So with your gross body, you're not actually there. Anyway, it would be very interesting if someday it's revealed. But someone said that they've made a recent discovery that showed that, I don't know the actual part of the brain or the substance of the brain, said it's very condensed, more condensed in a woman than a man. So the woman is actually smaller. That was the research in recent history. So that's also interesting, how theories go up and down, and Prabhupada got that theory in 1920, and it was disproven, and now there's a new theory that it actually maybe is true. So, yes.
When we are trying hard to be sincere and progress in bhakti, and still, we're always repeatedly conquered, tortured, and harassed by Maya and the mind. How to maintain enthusiasm and at the same time patience?
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Especially
enthusiasm.
How to maintain enthusiasm when you don't have enthusiasm. Yeah. Well, I can tell you the way I process it. If I'm not enthusiastic for Krishna consciousness, I'll, by nature, find something to be enthusiastic about, which would then not be Krishna conscious, which would then take me away from Krishna. So just from a rational perspective, it's better I'm enthusiastic about Krishna than something else. So even if I'm not enthusiastic about Krishna, I better be. So I'll force myself to be, because if not, my enthusiasm will go somewhere else. And if I'm enthusiastic for Krishna, it will become natural at some point. That's the idea. So I think next week you two should have a debate on whether we went to the moon or not. Invite all the devotees. And bring in some scholars. And, it's an interesting topic. Yeah. Prabhupada said some interesting things. The moral of the story is, be careful you don't land on the moon on your way back to Godhead, because we were told that on our way back to Godhead, Maya will offer us some position on a heavenly planet. So, you don't have to go to Vaikuntha, or you can get off the plane here and check it out. So, at least we should be careful. Yes?
When we are progressing towards our inner path in bhakti, and we still have contamination, we still have other interests, and we do some activities that we get pleasure because of our attachments, previous attachments. We do them, but then we get disappointment that we should not do this, it's affecting our routine or bhakti. So, but then after some time we forget about that disappointment. We still remember the previous pleasure, but we forget that the disappointment that straight away follows it. So how to remember that disappointment more so that we don't do it next time?
What an unfortunate condition we're in. That's the influence of Maya. So if Maya is going to engage you in material activity, she has to cause you to forget the suffering and only remember the pleasure. Right? Because if you remember the suffering, you won't do it. So what's the answer? Remember the suffering. At least remember I don't say necessarily remember the suffering, just remember what happened. Remember the result, remember how you felt. Ultimately, I would say that remembrance will come from your own desire to be more Krishna conscious, because the more Krishna conscious you are, the less ignorance there'll be, the less Maya will cover you. So that's, what we read today, Krishna from within guides. So, it's like if you want to remember the ignorance, certainly Maya will, if you want to forget the suffering, certainly Maya will help you. So basically you have this dichotomy, either Maya helps you or Krishna helps you, according to your desire, or the intensity of your desire. So if our desire is not strong, then Maya can use you and say, no, you actually had a good time last time, and the problem was you did it the wrong way, so just do it a different way, and if you do it this way, it'll be okay. Right? It's amazing. I find in my own life that I've become more clear about my attachments and more clear about the suffering those attachments have caused, and then I remember that suffering and it keeps me detached. Not that I'm detached, but it prevents me from becoming more attached than I already am. It kind of, neutralizes it. So I've noticed that my ability to remember the suffering is proportionate to my desire to detach from that. Like I sincerely want to detach from my attachments. So then I'm much more conscious of the suffering that I caused myself through that attachment. And even sometimes I'll see that attachment and immediately, like red lights go off, run away, you're going to suffer. So that's what I've noticed as I've progressed. And I've also found that things that cause suffering, sometimes when I see them, I just completely switch them around automatically, because I know how bad they are for my Krishna consciousness. And so I can neutralize them very quickly. I don't need them. So I think this is important for us to remember. When material things become attractive, that's Maya facilitating us because we want to enjoy them. When you have no desire to enjoy and Krishna's helping you, nothing looks enjoyable. When you have a desire to enjoy, things look enjoyable. So if you say, Maya, I want to enjoy that, she'll say, okay, let me paint the picture of how beautiful and enjoyable it's going to be. And she paints the picture and you go after it, because if the picture isn't painted, why would you go after it? You would only see it as some kind of temporary pleasure, inferior to Krishna consciousness. You have to forget that. So you forget the pleasure of Krishna consciousness. Maya paints the picture of how great this is going to be. You forget that you suffered last time, and then you fully engage in it. That's how she helps you, because you want to enjoy it. So she's saying, okay, you want to enjoy this. In order to enjoy this, you will have to forget that last time you did this, you suffered. Because if you remember that you suffered, now when you do it, you won't enjoy it. So I will cause you to forget that you suffered so you can enjoy it. So she's just facilitating your desire. Isn't that sad? But it's true, right? Because how will you enjoy something if you remember how bad it was? You have to forget how bad it was. And then after doing it and suffering, then you remember how bad it was. Oh, now I remember. I did this before and it was bad. Why did I forget? You forgot because you wanted to enjoy. You can't enjoy remembering. Right? I mean, look at some man at the office comes back home late because he had an affair with the secretary, right? Is that enjoyable? You cheating on your wife, is that enjoyable? No, you come home full of guilt and shame, I shouldn't have done it. But while he's doing it, all that gets turned off. Because if that's there, he can't enjoy it. So he's got to turn off the guilt and shame and his whole intelligence about how he's creating problems in his family. He has to forget all that to be able to enjoy it. If he remembers that, there's no enjoyment at all. Right? So that's the problem with Maya. She turns off our knowledge facility so we go dumb so we can enjoy something. And then when we enjoy it, after the pleasure's gone, the knowledge comes back and we go, well, that was stupid. Why did I do that? But we're supposed to think that before we do it, not after. Right? So that's how you evolve in Krishna consciousness. Now you think after you do it was stupid. As you advance, you think before you do it, that's going to be stupid, and you don't do it. So what a predicament we're in, isn't it? So you really have to be really careful what you desire, because Krishna will help or Maya will help, according to your desire. And when Maya helps you, it's like, okay, here we go again. Ah! And you can't even help yourself. Right? Dayato vishayam punsang sangateshu bhaja. You're just like, a robot running after that chocolate piece of candy. And you eat the whole candy bar. Why did I do that? I'm so stupid. I promised myself last week I would never do that again. So, for me, when I think of these things, I think, I don't want to be involved in that way of life. So better I remember the suffering, keep myself detached. And then I'm happy. Who wants to live that material life? And especially the paradox is we're devotees. So living half devotee, half Maya, that's even worse. Better live all Maya. Then you can just be in illusion all the time and think you're happy. But, if you're half devotee, then, you realize you're not happy, so better be full devotee. You will suffer more because you have knowledge. So my thinking is better just be a devotee all the time, and then you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. You agree out there? That's the right way to do it? They all agree. Okay, so why don't we stop? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi Hari Hari.
Thank you very much for coming, and it was, as usual, fantastic.